but you have to listen to the provider. So I went back to him and I was like, Lord, I can't do that. And I heard silence, nothing.
Wow. So talk about stepping out in faith for a book that he's birthed inside you. He's called you to write. He's called you to put out there. And now this book is going to be the very thing that might lead to you changing up how you've been living for a dozen years, baker's dozen years.
Everything is changing.
That's talk about faith in that regard, man. I admire that and I respect that. And so many, I always say that, man, salary can be handcuffs.
Yes.
And a title can be handcuffs, and your position that you held for so long can be handcuffs. So what made you want to break those handcuffs and just say, God, I'm trusting you with everything?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's golden handcuffs, right? They're golden handcuffs, and that makes them hard to take off, right? And I think like one of the key messages in the book is that if you walk with the provider, you won't be deceived by the provision. Right. And so in any season that we're in, we have to walk with the Lord. And some of those seasons could like taking a steady paycheck from your job. Like I am not one of those guys who's like, oh, your salary is a drug, this and that. Like I'm not one of those guys, because like I saw the Lord provide for me and teach me so much as I stewarded my job. Right. But you have to listen to the provider. And when he asks you to move on and the brook dries up, you have to be willing to move on and break those golden handcuffs and step out into whatever he's called you to. I didn't want another 5 years to go by of comfort and me not step out and do the things that I feel like he's put on my heart to do. That would have been a failure in my regard.
You put a lot of emphasis on spiritual health rather than focusing on the physical wealth.
Yeah. 100%.
So why is that? Why did the Lord birth that on you?
Yeah, so I think that every financial issue typically has a spiritual root. So every financial issue typically has a spiritual root, right? And you can't treat spiritual issues with practical ideas. So you could budget all you want, right? It's not going to deal with your pride.
Come on.
If pride is your issue, it's not going to. In fact, I've learned that pride doesn't submit to a budget.
Wow. Yeah, because
that was for somebody.
Yeah.
Don't be mad at me. But from my own experience, pride does not submit to a budget. So pride is a spiritual issue that is going to have a financial consequence, right? And you can't treat that spiritual issue with a practical idea. Like you're not going to be able to tithe your way out of unforgiveness.
That's so true.
So here's a story, right? So this amazing woman that I know, she was a single mom, made a ton of mistakes, gave her life to the Lord, single mom, and she got saved. And her ex-husband owed her like $20,000 in child support or something like that. It wasn't paying her. And she was like 30 grand in debt. And so she was just in a really tough spot, right? And she got saved, and she was just learning, the Lord's ways and learning his heart and learning to walk with him and trust him. And she tells this incredible story the story is in the book, that she felt the Lord prompt her, say, hey, you need to forgive him of his debt. And she was like, well, Lord, I forgave him. And he goes, no, you need to go down to the courthouse and forgive him of his debt. And so she was like, okay. And so she literally drove down to the courthouse and signed a paper and said, he no longer owes me any of this money. This is a single mom making no money. She was owed $20,000 in child support and $30,000 in debt. And she trusted him, the Lord, and she forgave him. Within, I think, maybe 2 years, I think it was, don't quote me, 2 years, she was completely debt-free. So there was an unforgiveness in the spiritual realm that was leading to debt in the natural. And she links that forgiveness to her being free and it leading to her paying off all of her debt.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing. Beautiful story, man. Okay, so you brought up debt.
Yeah.
We're not going to go Dave Ramsey on people here today, but we are going to talk about this because you mentioned in one of your videos about promoting this book, you mentioned 78% of Americans die with debt.
73% of Americans will die.
73%. Okay. 73% die with debt. And instead of our biblical mandate of passing on generational wealth to our children and leaving something behind for them, an inheritance, a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children. Instead, we're seeing a lot more people start to leave debt to their children.
Yeah.
Speaking of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's so my story, I was somewhere between $125,000 and $150,000 in debt. Bad debt. Not like I owned a house, like bad debt, like credit card debt, student loan debt, brand new car debt, all kinds of stuff. And so I didn't come from a place of like, oh yeah, I'm wealthy and I have all these things that I understand and know. That wasn't the case at all. Like I was literally like, those, if you've been in a place where $20 will make or break your week, that's where I was. I mean, when we planted a church in 2012, I think I was tithing off my unemployment checks at the time. So I was hard off, man. Like I was not doing well. And so, I had to learn how to pay off debt, and learn how to say no to myself so I can say yes to my future. And so paying off debt was a big part of that. A lot of people will spend themselves into debt, trying to live a life that they're not ready to live. A lot of people will do that. But the number one cause of debt is unplanned for emergencies. Unplanned for emergencies. It's that car issue, that tax issue, that health issue that they're not prepared for that spirals them into debt, Wow. And so learning some principles around paying debt were huge for me, huge in climbing out of that situation. And I was able to pay off $130,000 to $135,000 in bad debt while at the same time building wealth through these principles.
That's huge, man.
Yeah, which is amazing.
That's incredible. Yeah. And you shared a story that was so good in your book, dude. I love this in your introduction where you talked about an artist came to perform and was essentially raising money for his album. And you were like going to sow into it. And then the Lord whispered something to you. Yeah. So, hey,
you bring up, so the Lord whispered, which I think is key in the entire book is the Lord's whisper in your life and not obeying a formula, but obeying his voice and his leading in your life. And so that story, this is crazy, but so we were church planning and I was collecting unemployment. And the week I was tithing off my unemployment checks. And I took an entry-level job, maybe a little bit more than entry-level, but it was beneath my experience, if that makes sense. But I just needed a job. And then, so I worked there for making, a pretty low salary for about a year and a half. And then I went to this event and the Lord had been just challenging me on my perspective of money, challenging me on my trust in him. And so I went to this event and this worship artist, really well-known worship artist, was raising money for an album that he was putting out. And I had just gotten my bonus check, my first bonus check from my job. We're in the back and we're worshiping and he's raising an offering. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna give because I just got paid. Like I'm feeling good about myself. I can be generous, And so I wrote out a check that for an amount of money that I felt like I could afford. And I'm getting ready to put the check in the offering. And I heard the still voice of the Lord say, you could put another zero on that check. And I was like, no, I can't. I was like, no, Lord, actually, I can't. I was like, that's my entire bonus check. I can't do that. And I've noticed that when the Lord asks you to do something, he doesn't ask twice. So I went back to him and I was like, Lord, I can't do that. And I heard silence, nothing. I was like, okay. I know that if I don't obey, I'm not going to hear him as well. And so I might be him. And so I talked to my wife and she's just like, hey, do whatever you feel like you need to do. And so I did it, put the zero in the check, I put it in the offering. And about 6 months later, I got a promotion at my job that doubled my income.
Wow, come on. And that's when everything changed, right? That's when you got out of debt and everything.
Everything changed. Everything shifted. Now, I want to fast forward to that job offering, that job promotion. So the night before the interview, I'm in ministry and that was always my goal. Like I wanted to be in full-time ministry. I was a volunteer bivocational pastor, but I wanted to be I just want to be a pastor. That's it. But the church we were planning financially just couldn't afford it. And so the Lord would just challenge me all the time on embracing my 9-to-5 job, embracing where he put me and where he placed me and being a light there to so many people.
Come on.
So I have my job. Night before the interview, I'm praying and I'm praying and I'm just like, Lord, like I just want your will for my life, this and that. And then I say these words that I had never said before. And have you ever prayed and you said something that shocked you?
Yeah. Sure.
So this is one of those moments. I said, Lord, I want you more than I want money. And then my heart sank because I realized that up until that moment that wasn't true. That inwardly, I say I wanted God, but I really was more interested in getting money. And so in that moment, I got on my knees and I just repented. I said, Lord, I'm sorry. I said, whether I get this job or not, I just want to have you. I just want to be in the center of your will. Went to the interview the next day, crushed it. Crushed it. Got the job. I beat out people who had been at the company for 20 years. I'd been there for a year and a half. People who had been at the company for 20 years were going for this job. And somehow I got it. And then my income and my income more than doubled overnight. And that began the trend of me climbing out of debt, building wealth, and then having incredible experiences where I've been able to start businesses, start nonprofits, start ventures and things like that, and see the Lord really begin to teach me how to steward more than just paying off debt. You didn't get to chapter 5 yet.
Not yet.
So chapter 5 is, and this is kind of what I'm known for, is the white cup test. It's based on the statistic that the average American spends $1,400 a year at Starbucks, but 61% of Americans don't have $1,000 saved for emergencies.
Guilty. No,
it's like, yeah, right. yeah, right. And so some people are like, well, I don't drink Starbucks. I'm like, cool, but everybody has a white cup.
Right. What's your white cup?
Yeah, everybody has a white cup. And so what the white cup assessment is you go through and you track every dollar that you've spent over a 3 or 6 month period. I like 6 months, right? I don't care if it was $1.27 at the vending machine. You're gonna track it and categorize it under miscellaneous stuff that I shouldn't have bought, right? Yeah. You're gonna track and categorize every single dollar that you spent. You're gonna add it up each category and then divide by 6. Divide by 6 months to find out where your average is, right? Every single time I've had someone do this test, they've been blown away by how much money they're wasting.
Wow.
Right. So I remember I taught it. The first time I taught it was at the church that we planted. And the single mom came up to me and she goes, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "What?" She goes, "I spent $600 at Pizza Hut in the last 3 months." I was like, "Yo, it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. Like, you better start making that stuff at home." Like, that's crazy. And I did it for a friend of mine. My friend's like, he bought 2,000. He goes, "I spent $2,000 online." I'm like, "Oh my God." I'm like, "What'd you buy?" He goes, "I don't know." I'm like, "Oh, we have a problem, dude. And so just these shocking, when you're like, money is a revealer, right? How you spend your money is a revealer. So you go through this white cup test and you find out, where's my money actually going? Some people say, "Well, I can't save." I have a hard time believing that. You just need to, the real problem is you haven't prioritized your spending. Right.
100%.
Like, so I think as Warren Buffett had said, like, you should spend what you can after you're done saving, not save what you can after you're done spending.
Yeah, that's real.
And most of us spend all of our money on our comforts and our lifestyle and not our goals or our future.